Yep, I finally watched Sonic 3. And you know what? I had a lot of fun. Spoilers. Duh. I mean, come on. I grew up playing Sonic 2 on my GameCube, and I was instantly taken back to my childhood. Seeing the whole story of Shadow be adapted for this movie was sick, but the part where I nerded out the most was when they finally played Live and Learn. Not only had the two teamed up and gone Super Saiyan, they were doing it to the most hype music of all time. Not to mention them mimicking their iconic pose from the game's box art. I only wish they had included some aspect of the first mission of the game because I was sitting there eagerly waiting to hear this absolute banger. We were robbed, guys. We were robbed! I also need to talk about the real scene stealer from this movie, Jim Carrey. And man, Carrey is such a fitting name because this man carried the film on his back. He's made it clear over the years that he hates doing sequels, but when asked about these movies getting sequels, he said he was happy to reprise the role. And I always kinda thought it was for the money. I was like, haha, very funny, Jim. You can tell us it's for the bag, Jim. We won't judge you for being strapped for cash, Jim. But man, it must be true because he looks like he's having the best time as Robotnik. And old Robotnik too. I mean, I never thought I'd say this, but Jim Carrey has incredible chemistry with himself. I was laughing the majority of the time he was on screen. And it wasn't just a silly chuckle or a little exhale out of my nose. No, I was properly laughing out loud at Sonic 3. It also helped that I went with my friends because we were giggling the whole time. There were great quips, interactions, and physical gags, but nothing could have prepared us for this odd couple's dancing scene. It was an absolute masterpiece, yet I'd never thought I'd see a movie where Jim Carrey plays a character, as well as that character's dad, has a big dance number, and that very same dance number somehow has spicy undertones. Like, what the heck was this? Also, just from a film standpoint, pretty impressive job making this look seamless. There are plenty of moments where these two directly interact with each other on screen, and it looks so natural. Well, about as natural as two Jim Carreys can look, but whatever. Great job, Team Sonic. Or just Team, I guess. Other than all the Robotnik stuff, I gotta say, the final fight between Sonic and Shadow was freaking awesome. It was just so anime, doing crazy stuff like falling to Earth so fast that they impact the planet like a meteor, or them flying up onto the moon's surface. It was like something straight out of an episode of Dragon Ball. For how much I enjoyed it as a relatively casual adult Sonic fan, I can only imagine the sheer astonishment of a young diehard Sonic fan. Just an absolute Sonic-induced high. Oh, and let's not forget that big reveal at the end. I had been sitting back twiddling my thumbs, wondering if we'd see Metal Sonic in this movie. And by the end, I'd kinda lost hope of that happening. But boy was I wrong. Metal Sonic didn't just show up, a whole gang of Metal Sonics did, gearing us up for the next installment. But just when everything seems like it's gonna be crazy, someone else shows up to help Sonic out. Yeah, guys, it's Amy. Like I said, I was with a group of friends, and I looked over at my friend Waleed, who had also played the games, and both of us were hyped when she came on screen. But it was really funny because I looked over at my other friend Ryan, only for him to say, "Who the fuck is Amy?" This is why I love watching movies. But, of course, this movie wasn't all good. After all, it's very clearly a kid's movie, so it was all very show, not tell. Making sure that at any turn, anybody under the age of 6 would understand what's going on. Best example being the whole scene where Tom and Maddie are using their cloaking devices to sneak around Gun's headquarters. Typically, if you're trying to remain inconspicuous and not be detected, you keep your cloaking devices on at all times. Not these two. It seems like any time there's a minute where Tom and Maddie are alone, one of them uncloaks themselves. Like, I get it, you need to remind the kids in the theater every 5 seconds that even though these characters don't look like Tom and Maddie, they are in fact Tom and Maddie. Which makes sense, but come on, nothing about this is practical. It only makes me more anxious watching saying things like, "Tom, turn your disguise back on, they're gonna catch you!" Also, the voice acting. The voice acting, guys! I feel like I'm constantly going to need to give this movie some grace given the context that it is a kid's movie, but you know what? Kids' movies can have better voice acting than this. It just feels off. I know Sonic can be cheesy and that's perfectly fine, but the delivery of some of these lines feels too lifeless and hokey. Oh, and Shadow is a whole other thing. Don't get me wrong, I'm a Keanu fan. He seems like a chill guy, but my gosh, I wish he could have done more for Shadow. Shadow looked awesome. He looked freaking sick. I mean, just look at this. But every time he opened his mouth, all I could think of was, Yeah, that sounds like a tired, edgy Keanu Reeves. I mean, I know he's supposed to be a super jaded character with a dark backstory, but I feel like he could be a little more expressive than this.
This is a waste of time. Walk away before you get hurt.
Even the way this movie is shot is kind of meh. It feels like an animated TV show stitched together to be feature length. Heck, they even did a freaking Family Guy cutaway, which I laughed at because I'm a sucker for a good cutaway joke. It only ever gets super cinematic during the fight scenes, which, to their credit, does make them noticeably more punchy. But one of the goofiest things was this forest setting used at the beginning and end of the movie. The whole thing looks ridiculously uncanny with the lighting looking the way it does. Mix that with some generic background music, and you have an intro scene that feels a little bit more like a TV commercial than a movie. No joke, not even 5 minutes in, my friend Ryan leaned over to me and said, "It kind of feels like they're about to try and sell us something." Which, I don't blame him, because yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like we're just watching Sonic, but all of a sudden they're gonna pan the camera over and we're gonna see a 2025 Toyota Tacoma. I know it seems like I'm making fun of this movie a lot, but it's mainly because I love movies and know that this isn't a masterpiece. But who really is going into Sonic 3 thinking it's gonna be a masterpiece? That being said, I think it's important to note that this movie was written for a younger crowd, because if you go in accepting that fact, there is so much fun to be had. Aside from a few cringy jokes here and there, there's an enjoyable, nostalgic story filled with a lot of laughs and bizarre antics. I didn't think I'd say this, but I'm actually kind of excited to see what Sonic 4's like. I remember when the first one came out, I thought it felt like a very by-the-books kids movie, and by the time Sonic 2 came along, it felt like it was starting to establish its own identity. This movie more definitively solidifies that identity. While it still feels like a lot of other kids' movies in some ways, it feels so much more like a Sonic movie than the first one did. We've come a long way. And an even longer way when you consider that Sonic almost looked like this. Anyway, that's all I've got. If you grew up playing Sonic, give this a watch. You'll probably like it. Heck, even if you didn't play Sonic as a kid, there's still some fun to be had with this one. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go watch some Shadow Thirst Traps.